Robotica-st! Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Robotica-st, the robots podcast based on everything Robotica. I'm Anderson9132, the Robot Wars Guru, and I'm as ever joined alongside...
By me, Jimmi Cottam. Robot geek person guy.
That pretty much ticks everyone's box, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's me, good old-fashioned box ticker.
Well, it's been a very exciting series so far. We've seen a robotic lawnmower and a stealth bomber pretty much go through to the finals, and we've got 4 formidable robots to discuss this time. Before we start, I mean, it is episode 3, as we all know. Amit does his usual drugged up intro. He's mentioned that he thinks Tanya Meme is an android that's been sent to Earth to destroy us all. If any of us is an android sent to destroy us all, it's him.
Yes.
If I'm honest...
The chaotic tendencies of... Well, the 90s was famed for, I think.
Yes. He's... I mean, that is literally the best way to describe him. Imagine C-3PO gone crazy. That is Amit Zappa. That is this month's conspiracy of Amit Zappa. Thank you.
I do love Amit, though. I think he's slowly growing on me. Like, to begin with, I thought it was a bit over the top, but now that I've seen it a bit more in context, I think he's actually quite good.
I mean, at least he's enjoying it. I'd rather that than someone just going, no,
exactly.
Extra, but we guys, you know. But we've discussed the host enough now. Unless something really major happens that they mention, I think we can just breeze past the host part. And we can move straight on into the teams and robots. So Group B, a.k.a. Group Red and Blue. Jimmy, what was for the red team?
We had Wendigo first for the red team.
Wendigo, which is, I believe they mentioned it was a ancient Indian name meaning taking someone's spirit. I think that's what they said.
Yeah, they said that one tribe would take or attack another tribe to take their spirit to make themselves more powerful, which is quite ominous.
Yeah, I mean, as far as names go, that's pretty damn awesome, to be fair.
But funny thing is, like, to me, Wendigo didn't look right, so I had to do a Google search and came up with Wendigo, which is another word. And I thought, are they pronouncing this robot's name wrong? But I did actually look back, and it is actually Wendigo.
Of course, this is entered by Patrick Campbell, who entered Frenzy into Robot Wars and BattleBots, and the Bat into Robot Wars Extreme Warriors Season 2, made it to the Heat Final.
Oh, okay.
So, yes. Yeah, it's also interesting.
Yes, there was a little peek of Frenzy in the pit segment halfway through, where they were showing them around the workshop. Did you see?
Yeah.
Did you see Frenzy?
Yes, I
lurking away in there.
That little cheeky cameo.
Yeah.
This robot was also known as Marauder and eventually Africanized Killerbot in BattleBots as well. So yes. There we go. So it's definitely a team with experience, and this machine itself has seen quite a lot of robot combat, especially with its steel forklift instead of a wooden one. I don't know.
I kind of dig the design of Wendigo. Like, I kind of think I almost want to say it reminds me a little bit of early Panic Attack. Like, solid box, lifting forks, does the job.
So I would say more King Bee.
Oh,
Invertible,
okay.
see-through top.
Oh, yeah, I see that now.
The way I look at it, it's a solid design, though. It's invertible, like we said. It's got a good ground clearance to avoid obstacles. And it has a weapon, so it's not like it's just a weaponless, featureless box. It perfectly suits Robotica. One thing I really liked was they mentioned in their pit segment, when they discussed the team and the robot build process, they mentioned that they wanted to get 4 really big motors, but they couldn't get them, so they got 8 smaller motors, which gave them just as much power as those bigger motors would, but they were like at a reduced cost.
Yes. So
that's quite genius when you think about it.
That is quite a handy tip to know as a prospective robot builder. Just
yes.
Buy load of cheap motors and mount them in an array to make your robot more powerful. No, that was a good design. I think they worked well with their limitations, and well, we saw that Wendigo was quite the powerful machine.
Definitely so. So, with Wendigo discussed, we best discuss their opponent from the blue team, iDroid. So it's an Apple robot, apparently. And let's be honest, it's your granddad's allotment shed on wheels. It's the pièce de résistance of Robotica, and I love it.
Commodore Garden pitchfork. That's what it had, with a spike on it.
And it wasn't even using it properly. It was using it as like an axe. I would have thought it would have been best as a lifter.
Unless it had like a dual purpose sort of thing. Kind of reminded me of like someone had described Behemoth over a very bad phone connection.
Using Skype, and it's just or just cutting out, and it's like, this is what we came up with, lads. But okay, I've had my laughs, I've had my jokes, but you look at this thing, and then you find out some interesting things. For example, it's got diamond-plated armour. What? Where'd that come from?
That sounds more exciting than what it actually is. So, diamond-plated armour, I think, refers to the fact that it's diamond plate, like checker plate.
Oh, so, right, fair enough.
Like the kind of like the armour on Hypnodisc. That was checker plate.
Ah, yes, I see what you mean.
But this one was the diamond variant of that. It doesn't mean that it's coated in diamonds. It just means it's got diamonds on it.
I'll tell you, that would be awesome, though. They spent all the money on diamond armour, hence why it's got a pitchfork for a weapon.
Yeah, right. Although we've spent all this budget, what are we going to put on it as an offensive weapon? Garden fork, okay.
But interestingly enough, I mean, it also reminds me a bit of Prince of Darkness from Series 1 of Robot Wars. It doesn't look very assuming, but this thing could pull a four-wheel drive car, as we saw in its build process diary.
Very powerful drive.
Yes, and that's something that's important in Robotica, so it might come in handy later on.
There is a good quote from Walter Martinez during that B-roll segment in the middle. He says, "You're playing God, you're building something that comes alive." And that kind of resonated with me quite well, because when you build a robot, you are just using bits of plastic and metal and whatever you can find. But as it grows and as it develops, you're kind of putting a soul into it, and that, you know, it does become alive. It does become a part of you as a builder. And him saying that kind of made me think, yes, but maybe not playing God in the ethereal sense, but putting all this passion and ambition into a machine does make it feel alive.
Definitely so. And this is another machine with quite a lot of experience. Entered in Extreme Warriors as Red Virus, which is basically this but red and with a lifting fork instead of a pitchfork. Mm-hmm. And they also entered into BattleBot Season 3 with, I think it's pronounced Shaka?
Shaka, yeah.
Yeah, imagine this with a better forklift and covered in leopard print. One interesting thing was it managed to actually go the full 3 minutes with Son of Waiachi, which not a lot of robots can claim they'd have done. So,
no. Fair
play. So it shows that it's been built really well. It's very much one of those unassuming robots, but it still, you know, is built well. It's proof that looks aren't everything, is what I'm trying to say.
I quite like the scrappy-looking robots, to be quite honest. I think it adds a bit more of that human element of, you know, it's not perfectly machined and it's not been rigorously designed. It kind of has the aesthetic that it has been cobbled together in a shed, which both me and you kind of like.
Yes, definitely. And it just gives it a little bit more personality.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm not discounting that it looks scrappy, but I like the human element.
Right, so that's Group A out the way. Group B teams. Who is representing the silver team, Jimmy?
We have Crisis Management.
Crisis Management!
Ah, yes. Now, in the last episode, I said the guys who entered Hot Wheels had the dream job because they made toys. I was wrong. This guy has the best job in the world. He gets to blow things up for a living.
He's a Hollywood pyrotechnician.
What a lad. Yeah, this is an interesting robot with quite an interesting weapon. They've got a pneumatic cable cutter.
Yeah, kind of akin to the Jaws of Life on a bit of a smaller scale.
Yes. Now, I will give them praise for the originality. The problem with a weapon like this is, one, it's very small, so you have a very small surface area to work with. And two, it's also very difficult to aim it at another robot. But points for trying.
I kind of like claws on robots. I do like the look of like original Sir Killalot's Jaw of Life claw. If it had worked properly, I think it would have been quite damaging. Like back in the day when robots weren't as tough as what they were now, that could have been a pretty handy and damaging weapon.
I also want to say this guy who built this is awesome. He says it's run on adrenaline and caffeine. That's brilliant. I love that. That's absolutely fantastic.
His name is J.D. Street. How cool is that?
Sounds like he should be slamming bars, not slamming robots. Another interesting point with this, because being honest, it just looks like a box with some cutters on the front of it. But there are some interesting points. One I'd like to point out is that it was built in 3 weeks, which, in all fairness, for a 3-week build, this isn't terrible. I know currently, for example, BattleBots is on the verge of coming out, and a lot of robots were built in a month, and they look a lot better than this, but this was 20 years ago, when technology was a lot less, and there wasn't as much CAD around, etc., etc. So, of course, for someone to take 3 weeks and build something like this in that amount of time, you've got to give respect where it's due.
Yeah, aesthetically, kind of follows a similar formula to what a lot of American fighting robots kind of look. The big flat box with 4 chunky wheels and a wedge or something at the end. It kind of rings true that if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
It just works.
It also had magnetic nets, which I don't think I've ever seen before, so fair play to them for that as well.
It was a good idea, I think. I think if you're going to have a net, you need to find a way to tether it down somehow, and they added the magnets to it.
Yes. Now, Jimmy, you're quite good at your research. I really hope to hell you did better with me on this one, because apparently this team have a lot of experience. Well, apparently this was their 4th robot, but I couldn't find anything about what they previously built.
No, I couldn't find anything.
Bugger. and I promise you I tried hard. I even clicked on page 2 of Google, so we know I did a thorough search.
That is how desperate you were to find information about Crisis Management's team.
Definitely. Interlude. Yes, it turns out after recording this, Jimmy, because he's Jimmy Cottam, an absolute legend and wellard, was actually able to find out some information on this guy's previous robots. We found out about 2 of them. There's SPS number 1, which was a lightweight robot that contested in the 1995 US Robot Wars. It was essentially a dome robot. Basically, it looked like a kitchen wok that had been flipped upside down and had a pointy bit stuck on it. It wasn't very good. Lost in the round 1 to the eventual champion Test Toaster, so happy days. It competed in the lightweight melee, and it also lost that as well. But it's set his second robot, SPS number 2, which was a featherweight machine that I'm mostly interested in, because as you can tell by the picture used here, it was a flying robot, which actually won a fight as well, which is pretty cool. Now, I know that modern robot combat, like BattleBots, flying robots are quite a usual thing these days, but that's with the technology of drones, and they're only ever really like a side robot or like a mini bot to accompany a heavyweight. This was very much its own competitor, a flying featherweight that won a fight in 1995. To put that into perspective, I was 1 year old at this time, so I think this guy deserves a hell of a lot of credit just for managing to do that, because it is really, really cool. Yeah, it looks weird, it looks daft, and good lord, it would never do well today, but I think just as far as technological advancement for the time, and just using your imagination, I think this guy deserves a real big round of applause for his previous machines, because this is, especially this one, this is just really, really cool. Fair play to him for that much. It's a shame he doesn't really compete now, because it would be nice to see what he can come up with today. It really would be. But yeah, it's an interesting machine. It's got 4-wheel drive tractor steering, which I guess it's the same as tank steering. I'm guessing it's meant to make it sound more powerful, but I don't really understand how that really affects anything.
To be quite honest, the notable features I don't really think they mean anything. I just think it's something to put in there, like two-wheel drive or diamond plate.
Yeah.
Diamond plated armour.
Well, speaking of two-wheel drive chains, for the gold team, we have Jawbreaker. And I agree with you here. They say that they've got this, this design feature section. They could have said anything about this robot, which I'm happy to go forward to in a second, and they decide to pick its two-wheel drive chain as the thing that they really want to let people know about.
As opposed to, like, one-wheel drive, like no-wheel drive.
See, now here's something I think they could have put in there, and that's that its design feature, the jaws were powered by actuators from plane wing flaps.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. That's, again, it's that reusing of like recycled materials and putting them into a fighting robot. That's the best thing about building a fighting robot is you can go to a scrapyard, you can find a bit of an old aeroplane, and you can say, that's in my robot now. Why didn't they put that as a notable feature with it? Two-wheel drive. Like Stinger has two-wheel drive.
Most robots had two-wheel drive to move.
Really Wacko had two-wheel drive.
Ay vey. Its weapons are a big jaws of death. Now, this is one of those robots where you'd think I'd love it because it's got a lot of personality and it looks interesting, but I don't. I will get into why I don't like it later, but I'm saving that for later. But what do you think of this one, Jimmy?
Oh, that's a very controversial opinion, I think. I think Jawbreaker looks fantastic. I love its aesthetic. I love the big jaws. I think it looks like a fighting robot. That is the best thing about it. Like I said, like you can build a box wedge akin to something like Original Sin. No, that is effective and works really well. Or you can go all out and put big spikes on it, massive jaws, chunky tyres, and give it a cool paint scheme.
I agree with everything you just said there, but like I said, there is my reasons for disliking it, but I will go into those a bit later on, where it's seems more fit, I should say.
I'm interested to hear this.
Yes. What I do like about it is the fact that it was based on something from Donkey Kong Jr. As a massive video game fan,
yes.
That really cheers me up. And what I quite liked as well, in the build diary bit, you see that he borrowed his dad's garage to do the welding. And you see that little moment where the dad just says to the camera he's a proud father and things like that. I just think they're wonderful in a show like this.
Again, it's the humanity, isn't it? I kind of get the impression with some robot fighting shows it is all just about the robots, not really the people behind it. It's kind of the reason why I really enjoyed rebooted Robot Wars and new BattleBots to a certain extent. You get to know the people behind the machines rather than the machines themselves.
Yeah, exactly. It's an important part of it because a lot of people do forget that these are real people entering here and there's a lot of things at stake. To hear this sort of stuff, it is really nice. So, let's move on to the Speedway. That was terrible. Jimmy?
Yeah.
How does the Speedway work?
So it is in layman's terms, it's a figure of 8 demo derby type race against the two robots. Every lap is worth 10 points, and the first robot to complete 8 laps or is ahead at the end of 2 minutes gets an additional 20 points. And you can cross over and ram each other and, do a bit of fighting as you go around.
So, jolly good scrap up whilst also having a nice race. What's not to love? And of course, first of all is Group A, so it is Wendigo versus iDroid. Bit one-sided.
A little bit, yeah.
Quite tactical. I liked how Wendigo, as it crossed the line, would bash into iDroid to try and stop it and push it backwards a little bit. Like every time iDroid was getting close to the line, it was like, nope, back you go.
I must admit, iDroid, I think they had a nice controlled start. Wendigo was quite quick out of the starting blocks, and I think that's kind of the excitement of the event. You try and we've got to get ahead first, got to speed away, and sometimes doesn't come off very well. Sometimes you just spear off into the first wall.
I'd argue that's what Wendigo did quite often, which is basically what this was. This was Wendigo had the speed, Idroid had the control. So when you've got that, it becomes a battle of who's got the most power, and in this case, it was Wendigo.
Yes. I just think that because of the lack of speed, I mean, we know that Idroid has the pushing power, but sometimes that doesn't translate very well into straight line speed, which Wendigo had. And okay, they weren't very well controlled after hitting the walls, but I think the speed aspect was kind of, well, of course it pushed them over the edge. Why else would they have won otherwise?
Yeah, and to tell you what, Wendigo, speaking of speed, it was only at 25% speed.
Yeah, you said that at the end of the match. What's that thing like on 100%?
I know, it's mental. Absolutely mental. Unfortunately, iDroid eventually dies. Apparently it was the fuses event we found out a bit later on when we see it getting repaired by owner, Walter. But it died after only doing 1 lap. Meanwhile, Wendigo was able to finish on with 6 laps, which makes the scoremaster.
So Wendigo did the full 8 laps, wins 80 points. iDroid only did 1 lap, which is 10.
Yeah, not the closest.
Not really.
But there's still 2 rounds to go, so iDroid have plenty of time to make up for that as we move on to the Group B Speedway. Now, we talk about being close. This was close.
This was close.
I mean, we're talking a foot. It was in this, pretty much, wasn't it? Critical Mass tried using its nets, but had...
No. Not Critical Mass. Crisis Management.
Oh, we'll start that again, shall we? Crisis Management tried using its nets and had really terrible aim. Like they weren't even going anywhere near Jawbreaker. But yeah, what did you think of this one?
Well, the closest race I think I've seen, I thought it was quite smooth actually. Like there wasn't really much crashing and bashing as they were going around. I think they were both legitimately trying to keep ahead. Hence why Crisis Management threw the nets. Didn't really work, did it, as intended? What, the final lap? The end lap where Jawbreaker stopped Crisis Management from crossing the line? I thought that was a pretty good tactic. Like, I'm ahead, I know I'm ahead, but you're not going to get that last lap in.
Yeah, genius. Absolutely. And it was literally, I mean, I think if they got onto them a second later, Crisis Management would have crossed the line. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. I will notice one thing. Jawbreaker tapped Crisis Management's wheel and it broke it somehow. Don't really know how that happened. I think that might have been what let Crisis Management down because originally they were in the lead and then slowly but surely Jawbreaker caught up with them.
Yeah, Jawbreaker was suffering a bit of a control issue to begin with. I think whilst you're trying to hone your skills in. Didn't Tim Berghofer say that he set up his controls wrong? He set them up for a different event and then switched halfway through?
Maybe, yeah. I'll be honest, I don't remember him saying that, but he probably did. I'm a very forgetful man in my old age, so...
I think that's what he said. So I think that gave him the upper advantage in the end, especially with pushing Crisis Management back away from the start-finish line.
The fact that he could actually change that during the run is pretty impressive.
I don't know. It must be something to do with how the power is managed in the motors or something. I think Jawbreaker did get off to a bit of a sluggish start and a bit of a not very clean start. But as the race went on, they did manage to claw it back and did start showing a bit more form towards the end.
Definitely so. And of course, at the end, the points were...
Jawbreaker won that with the most laps, 5 laps towards the end. That was 70 points, and Crisis Management did 4 laps, which means they get 40 points. Just to let you know, in my notes, I've abbreviated Crisis Management to Crisis Man, which sounds like the worst superhero.
It just sounds like most people in lockdown right now, to be honest.
Crisis Man.
Yeah. Help me, Crisis Man.
Yeah. Never fear, I will send a tsunami your way. Like, no, that's not what we want. It is the opposite of what we want.
Just starts throwing random crises at people. It's brilliant. He caused COVID. It was him.
Oh,
that
God.
bastard.
Okay, maybe he's not a superhero. Maybe he's a supervillain.
Yes.
Crisis Man.
So,
Anyway, we digress.
We shall digress.
And that brings us on to the standings. So Wendigo has 80 points so far, and iDroid has 10. Crisis Man. Crisis Management has 40 points, and Jawbreaker is in the lead in that group with 70 points. Sorry, I'm just going to see Crisis Man now.
So everything to play for, really. We've still got 2 rounds to go. Anything can happen as we move into the maze round. Do you want to go over every single thing here, or shall we just say the basic rules?
Well, there's a seesaw, a block, paddles, speed bumps, guillotine of death, ramp, waterfall, end. I think that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it, yeah. You get 20 points per thing cleared, and then an extra 25 points for the person who finishes, or the robot that finishes the maze. So, simple as that. So, moving straight on into Group A's run. That, of course, is the red and blue teams. Wendigo versus iDroid. This was closer than I thought it was going to be.
Was it?
Well, yeah, because I genuinely thought iDroid was going to struggle with the ramp. And to be fair, at first it did. So I thought this was just a foregone conclusion. I thought it was going to be a case of Wendigo would just dominate and be at the end before iDroid even gets over the ramp. So the fact that it managed to get 3 obstacles clear is pretty impressive in my opinion.
Okay, yeah. I'll grant them that.
Yeah, I mean, I know it wasn't the closest as far as who's going to, they're both on the verge of winning the race. But as far as iDroid actually getting further than I thought it was, yes, it was closer.
Wendigo just like the increased speed and power, like the way that Wendigo bounced over the speed bumps towards the end, like you just see how much speed that had coming out of there.
Yeah, definitely. They got quite a bit of air, didn't they, as well?
They did.
I mean, and they just, again, it seems to be a favourite thing for boxers to do in this show. They decided, okay, I've won, and I'm going to go the other way. They just went straight over the finishing point, right down to the other side.
Okay, I'm not discounting iDroid. I think it was a valiant effort. If they got over the seesaw a bit smoother, they probably would have had a bit of a fighting chance. I don't know how they would have dealt with the speed bumps, though. I don't think they would have had the same ease that Wendigo had.
No, definitely not, no. But it was still a valiant effort. There's not really much to say because Wendigo was done within 10 seconds.
It was quick, wasn't it? It was a quick one.
It was a very quick one. Yeah, what more can you say? Wendigo won, which means the points are...
Wendigo gets a full 100 points. And iDroid only managed to clear 3 obstacles, which puts them on 45 points.
Which is respectable.
Respectable, yes.
So, moving on to Group B, the silver and gold teams. It is Crisis Management versus Jawbreaker. Now, again, much like their Speedway, this was very close.
Very close again.
I'm starting to notice a pattern here. Literally, it was on the line, wasn't it, pretty much?
Almost. I think... both of them came a cropper on that final wet ramp, didn't they? They couldn't get the control to ease themselves up, but every other obstacle was pretty much straight through. Pretty much.
Jawbreaker was slightly in the lead for the majority, and then they tried to go up the ramp, but I think they slipped, basically, because it was so wet because of the waterfall, and it meant that they ended up accidentally driving back down it again, and that gave Crisis Management the chance to quickly just nip straight up and win.
I wonder if that is a fault of the 2-wheel drive then, because they've got chunkier tyres. They've only got 2 surface contact areas on either side, whereas with Crisis Management, with 4-wheel drive and 4 tyres, like if one set loses grip, the other ones can at least still give a little bit of push. So I think that was probably where it was won and lost.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right there, mate, in all honesty. Proof that four-wheel drive can at times be much more beneficial than two-wheel drive, especially in a assault course style event like this one. But fair play to both robots. I mean, it was really close. I mean, I feel a bit bad for Jawbreaker because, like I said, they were leading this the whole way through until that final slip-up, literally.
Didn't they get stuck under the waterfall? Like, they were just being gushed by this torrent of water.
Well, I genuinely thought that was a stupid hazard, but it's actually been quite a foil so far, hasn't it? So,
yes.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't want all that water being poured all over me. I'd probably get squashed, but there we go. It was a bit of a interesting bit of revenge for Crisis Management as well, because obviously, like I said earlier, in their Speedway run, they were in the lead for the majority, and then Jawbreaker came out of nowhere, overtook them at the end, and then won it. And of course, this way was the opposite way round. So,
yeah,
a little bit of sweet revenge there.
A little bit of sweet revenge, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's all right. Carry on.
No, go on.
No, I've said what I needed to say. It's all right. We'll take this out in post. Or we'll leave it in.
We'll leave it in.
I don't leave it in.
Either way, it's a laugh,
This is
isn't
how unprofessional we are.
So after that, yeah, very, very close race. What are the scores, Jimmy?
Crisis Management did the full course and they managed to get the 4 points, 100. Jawbreaker only managed the 4 obstacles and they got 60 points.
Ooh, so, again, everything to play for there, I believe. It's still quite close. What are the scores overall?
So the standings so far, Wendigo has 180 points and iDroid is lagging behind with 55. Oh, God. I haven't put Crisis Man here. I've put Chris Man. which is the worst superhero. He's just Chris. He's Chris Man. He's an accountant. He lives in Barnsley. He just wears a cape on the train. Crisis Management.
Sorry. Compose yourself, man. Come on.
Okay, Crisis Management are on 140 points and Jawbreaker are on 130. I'm so sorry.
So it's very close between those guys still.
It is, yes.
Literally anything can happen in that regard. Unfortunately, I do believe even if Wendigo doesn't move in the gauntlet, I'm afraid they still win. Because they're just so far ahead. But I'm glad they did let the gauntlet happen no matter what, because good lord, was this awesome. Group A's gauntlet. What happened here? I just can't believe it. So
this is proof of the concept that iDroid was actually a decently powerful machine at the end of it.
Definitely. Wendigo does its usual and speeds straight ahead. You think it's going to win because it plows through 3 rules in no problem whatsoever. And then it gets stuck on just one brick, and it cannot get off. So iDroid just says, "Oh, soldier then," and he just plows through everything. And the safe, right? He just yeets out of its way. He's like, "Cheers, mate, get out of the way, thanks." Wasn't even a struggle for it.
iDroid's run in this gauntlet was flawless. Like, they had no problems, or no problems that I could see that were like major.
Yeah, they didn't even get stuck on any clutter or anything.
No, absolutely not. They did very well here.
Definitely so. I mean, again, there's not really much else you can say, is there? Unfortunately, about this one.
I'll make an observation once we've gone through the second group.
Okay, fair enough.
It's quite important or quite notable, let's say.
Fair enough. So yeah, after that quite shocking victory, what are the scores at the end of that?
Wendigo only covered 3 obstacles. I managed to win 45 points. iDroid did the entire thing effortlessly, and they get the full 100 points. But, as you say, Wendigo was so far ahead that the gap between them, Wendigo was always going to go through to the fight to the finish anyway.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. And then we move on to Group B, and I'm going to let you start off with this one, because again, this is a really close one.
So, Crisis Management and Jawbreaker. These two are pretty much on level peggings at this point. I think Jawbreaker's claw design really worked in their favour because it kind of worked as almost like a snowplow, kind of pushing the debris out to the side. Crisis Management were going backwards, I think. I think they were going ramp first to work like a snowplow. Both of them did seem to struggle with some of the debris, but Jawbreaker, I just think, is just a little bit more slickly designed and managed to plow on through to the safe with little to no issues. I mean, like I say, they were caught on debris, but I think their design, their setup worked well in their favour.
Yeah, for a two-wheel drive machine, its pushing power was immense to get that safe out of the way like that. I agree with you with the whole jaws acting as a plough thing, and I think, honestly, despite it didn't work out for them so much last time, the two chunky tyres worked in their favour here because it was almost impossible for them to get stuck on anything.
Exactly.
So, yeah, they got a little bit stuck, like you said, but it wasn't enough to stop them. Sadly, Crisis Management beats itself at the last hurdle. Again, this was right down to the wire, again, between these two, which is just a running theme.
And, you know, this is my observation, right? These American fighting robots that are pretty blocky, have chunky tyres, and are reasonably quick. I think sometimes that is a downside in an event like this, and this kind of shows how good the gauntlet can be, because on a sort of physics level, as you plow into some of the smaller debris, the chances of it going under you kind of increase because as you ride up over them with your chunky tires. And that's how Crisis Management and Wendigo managed to get high-sided on bits of the wall. Alternatively, if you were to have more pushing power and to go a little bit slower, not come out of the starting blocks bang on the off, you probably fare a bit better because you can kind of control where the debris goes, which is what we saw with iDroid. And, they won that event. Whilst it looks like it's a good idea to go headfirst straight into these brick walls, that seems to be a bit of a bad tactic sometimes. Sometimes you need to kind of line yourself up and get the best angle of attack to be able to get through the wall. And I think that worked very well in Jawbreaker's favour because they had the claw acting as a plough. They could guide where they wanted the debris to go.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, this one was closest in the fact that they were neck and neck with each other the whole way as well, pretty much. They were pretty much level with each other. I think Crisis Management just got to the last bit first, but like I said, they got stuck. And yeah, it's definitely that whole slow and steady can definitely sometimes win the race. Sometimes power and speed are nothing without control.
Exactly.
But what were the scores between these two?
Oh, the scores. So Crisis Management managed 4 obstacles, which was 60 points. And yeah, Jawbreaker did the full gauntlet, and that is 100 points.
So how do the standings look now, old boy?
So Wendigo managed 225, which puts them ahead of iDroid on 155, which isn't a bad score, I don't think, for iDroid. It could have been much worse.
Yeah,
I was expecting it to be much worse.
It's very respectable.
In fact, you I don't know if you want to put this picture up, but you sent me a picture of your... whilst you were watching it, and you just seemed so disbelieved.
Yeah, I didn't realise you hadn't watched it at the time, so I was afraid I might have accidentally spoiled it. But yes, here is shocked Anderson 9132 when something he doesn't think is going to happen happens.
He always takes his glasses off. Why? Why do you do that? Is it so you can get a better...
Sometimes I think my glasses are playing tricks on me. I like how you say always, by the way, as if you've seen, like, every time I've been shocked to something.
Every time you're shocked, you send me a picture like that. You could just send me the same picture because it's just exactly the same expression. Crisis Management managed to get 200 points, and Jawbreaker was actually a little bit ahead. Is that very close until the very end, I think, with them two. Jawbreaker managing to get 230. So that puts them through to the fight to the finish with Wendigo.
Oof. Now, so bear in mind what we've said so far. We've had some great run. I don't think there's been an event that's been disappointing so far. I think every run of everything has been pretty fantastic, especially with Group B.
Yes.
Very close. God, this fight to the finish was crap.
It was a bit boring, wasn't it?
Yes, and this is why I don't like Jawbreaker, or its other incarnations. I forgot to mention earlier that it was General Chompsort and Extreme Warriors, because this is all it does. Everything it's in, it just drives forwards, grabs something, pushes it against the sidewall, holds it until it has to let go, and then rinse and repeat. It's so boring, it's so irritating to watch, and it's so repetitive it gets on your nerves. And this was... I get it, it's in the rules, so it's not really cheating, but you have to admit this is cheap tactics.
But, yeah, I mean, pinning against a wall, especially if you've got the grip and the power to be able to drag something else around. I would rather see that than pinning against a wall. It is a little bit lame in that retrospect.
Yeah. I mean, at least with episode 1... you could argue that Killer Bee got itself stuck, so it doesn't really matter. They deserve to lose in that regard.
Yeah.
This was Wendigo just being pushed against the side wall and just being held there. I mean, imagine if you were in the audience right now, just watching 30 seconds of a robot being held against the side wall until the walls fall down.
I mean, tactically, that was probably what they were going for anyway, because they knew the wall was going to drop. Whereas you mentioned Extreme Warriors. I'm not as well versed in American style Robot Wars as what the Robot Wars guru is, let's say. So I haven't actually seen Jawbreaker's Robot Wars incarnation General Chompsort fight. Maybe I should get on that.
I think you should.
Although, to be quite honest, the way how you've sold it to me, it sounds a bit boring, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's just like, I mean, a lot of people rag on Tough as Nails because all it did was grab robots and put them in the pit, and there was not really any damage to speak of.
Yeah, but
this is the same
Tough
with
as Nails
Jawbreaker.
looks so good.
Yeah. I don't get me wrong. I get the looks are awesome, but I like if a robot's boring in battle, it's not going to entertain me, and if it doesn't entertain me, I'm not going to be a fan of it. That's how I look at it.
I think the biggest takeaway is that 75% of robot fighting is the entertainment value rather than the pushing and the shoving.
Yes. Well, no, the biggest takeaway is the KFC I had the other night, but not sponsored, of course.
Not yet.
Not yet. God, imagine if we got a sponsorship deal, geez, that'd be very weird. There's not really much to talk about, is there? Like I said, they just pin them against the wall, the walls fall down, off you go. Although they did fall off themselves, which is quite funny.
Yeah.
My note actually says utter poo. So
yeah, it was a little bit dull. I mean, I think both of them were trying to push each other. You could see the tires spinning, but because they were kind of wedged in that corner, they weren't really going anywhere, which is kind of why they stopped and just waited for the fences to fall down. And then, of course, Jawbreaker has the better power, bigger pushing power, and managed to take them both out, didn't they?
Yeah. And a bit of respect to them, because it's 2-wheel drive versus 4-wheel drive, so there's got to be some strength in there.
The claw, I think, worked well in its favour. I did think it was going to be a problem, because I don't know if you've noticed, but as Jawbreaker sets off, the inertia kind of wheelies them up and lifts up the bottom edge of the claw off the ground. Yeah. I thought that was going to be a problem. I thought crisis management would have easily got under that, but I think they managed to find just the sweet spot to get in onto crisis management and just keep them pinned.
I mean, I genuinely thought that was going to be an issue as well. Like, it was just going to lurch forward and it lift up. And I thought that what would happen was the Wendigo would just get underneath it, just ram it out the arena. But that didn't happen, obviously. I mean, I can't really blame the show for this, but it is a bit of a disappointing end to an otherwise really good episode.
That's kind of... I mean, I haven't seen any other Robotica episodes, or not that I can remember, but the fight to the finish is kind of hyped up to be this big, all-out assault, and sometimes it just isn't.
I know. It was definitely flawed. There were some good ones, but it was definitely flawed to the point where quite often they were crap. But we will discuss that and discover that as we move on. But I think it's time for us to move on to our merits. Make our little favourites of. So, for those who don't know, at the end of every episode, we like to take a look at our big three. They are our favourite robot, our favourite event, and our favourite moment. So, Jimmy, which was your favourite robot?
My favourite robot is the one that you don't like, Jawbreaker.
Oh. I mean, I understand why.
I just think it, like I said, it looks like a fighting robot. Okay, it's not a boring box, but it's got a good design, a usable design in a show like Robotica, as we've seen with its jaws and its power. Yeah, I'm kind of a bit taken aback that it didn't do very well, or it wasn't as exuberant in its other outings in different shows. But especially for Robotica, I think they did very well, and yeah, they had a pretty unique and original design that, you don't really see anything like that with massive clamping jaws.
Well, fair enough. I mean, I can understand why you love it. I hope you understand why I'm not a big fan, but there we go. My personal favourite was iDroid.
Really?
Yes, because whilst it was the worst performing machine, I fell in love with it because I love unassuming robots like this. I love robots where they look, it's just a heap of junk. It's not going to do well. I looked at it, when I saw this come out, I was thinking, well, this is napalm. This is going to do absolutely nothing. So the fact that it did as well, and after its speedway, I was like, yep, proving me right here. But then it got good in the maze, and then that out of nowhere gauntlet run, I was just like, wow. And then, of course, when I did my research, I found out that this machine, technically reskinned, managed to last a full 3 minutes of Son of Waiachi. I'm just like, what? Where did this come from?
Son of Waiachi is noted to be one of the most destructive battle bots ever created, and to last 3 minutes, I'm going to have to look that up. I think I need to see that for myself, because
I don't know if the fight was televised, but because this is battle bots, they didn't air half their fights. But no, seriously, I just love the fact that it's so unassuming yet it's so powerful. And had the fuses worked a little bit better, we might have seen a little bit better from them. I don't know, but that's that.
Like going through the entire episode, you can almost see their improvement. Like you can kind of gauge their improvement from event to event. Like they did quite poorly in the speedway, then they did okay in the maze, and then finally in the gauntlet they ran supreme.
Yeah,
I like to see that progression. Like they weren't a bad robot. You can see a robot come in and do pretty badly throughout the entire show, but iDroid did really well. I think it was a valiant machine, looks aside, like so it looked like napalm with its garden fork, but they delivered.
They definitely did. So what would you say was your favourite event?
My favourite event would have been the speedway race between Jawbreaker and Crisis Management. I think it was so close, like anyone could have won, and Jawbreaker just getting that upper hand at the very end, like, get back. But like I say, it was smooth, it was clean. Okay, there was not a lot of ramming or crashing, but it was nice and close, and it was a good speedway race.
See, now that's very, very interesting, Jimmy, because my favourite event of the episode was the speedway event between Jawbreaker and Crisis Management. Yeah, for very much the same reasons. So that was easy. Cheers, mate. You did that bit for me.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah. Let's not go too far now. Great, come on.
Whatever.
Your mind is great, darling, but mine not so much.
So.
No. Anyway, enough gushing over each other.
Yeah, okay.
Favourite moment for you, Jimmy?
Again, I think you might agree with me here. I think iDroid's gauntlet run, that it's tenacity. It just did. It did what it was supposed to do, and it was quite liberating in a way.
Yeah, no, I am in 100% agreement with you there. iDroid winning the gauntlet is my favourite moment because it's just so out of nowhere. I honestly saw this being a case of Wendigo just ploughing through, doing its thing and being done in 10 seconds. The fact that iDroid not only won, but pushed the safe out the way with such ease, as if it wasn't even there. I mean, I don't know about you. I haven't tried to move a safe, but in all honesty, I can imagine they're quite chonky. So,
yeah, just a little bit, especially one that size.
So for what is essentially your granddad's allotment shed on wheels, it was pretty effective at shoving it out the way, I felt.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely my favourite moment, and I'm happy we both agreed on that one.
Okay then, hot take. How would you have thought, okay, just hypothetically, if iDroid went through to the fight to the finish with Jawbreaker, how would that have panned out?
I think Jawbreaker would have probably still won.
Oh, okay, well.
Why, do you think iDroid would have won?
Maybe. Like, just the fact that they've got a bit more pushing power. I think maybe Jawbreaker would have had a bit more to bite onto, though.
Yeah, it's that situation. I mean, to be honest, it might have been more difficult because it's quite a tall robot, iDroid.
Yeah.
See, I'm interested now.
Just a hypothetical, like, just... Would
Just a hypothetical.
iDroid have fared better against Crisis Management had they gone through?
Yes, I think they would have won that. But although then again, because Crisis Management did have the lifting wedge, didn't it? And if they got underneath iDroid, they would have been over. It's one of those. It's finicky. There's lots of possibilities.
I like that. I like that sort of feeling with this episode. Lots of possibilities, and you know, I think the rightful winner did win, but. It sounds a bit ridiculous, but had it gone any other way, I think each one of them could have been very capable in the fight to the finish.
And that sort of brings us nicely onto our overall rating of this episode, because that's something we have to take into consideration, of course, was the robot quality. Jimmy, there was a lot of good quality in this, but there was a bit of a letdown at the end. I mean, did that fight to the finish ruin it for you, or do you still consider this to be a good episode?
I think if the fight to the finish had been a little bit more exciting, then it would have scored a very high 9.
Ooh.
But because of that fight to the finish, it was a bit boring, wasn't it? It was a bit lame. And I'm going to have to knock it down to an 8.
See, that's interesting, because last episode, it was a case of the fight to the finish was brilliant, but one of the groups, Group A, was a bit bland because it was just critical mass dominating Grimlock the whole way through. Meanwhile, this time around, it was a case of there was 2 very good groups, but the fight to the finish was naff. So because of that, it sort of balances it out. So I'm in agreement. I'm going to go 8 out of 10 with this episode as well.
Yeah, I mean, it like you say, high quality. You know, there's a few dud moments where iDroid failed to rack up the points in earlier stages, but the closeness between Crisis Management and Jawbreaker, I think, was kind of most of the excitement from the entire episode.
Definitely. And it makes you wonder if we're going to see anything that close again, because that was very close.
I don't want to sound bad, but Wendigo's mediocrity kind of let it down a bit. like, do you see what I mean? Like, they could clearly deliver, and they could clearly do what it was designed to do. And it was a well-designed robot, but it was just a bit plain. We didn't really see the lifting forks.
No, we didn't. Even in the Speedway, we didn't see them.
I would have thought that the lifting forks would have at least been quite a good weapon to have, especially in the fight to the finish, you know, to try and topple over another robot. But they didn't...
They did use it to stop Jawbreaker's jaws from clamping them, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
But I think that was more luck than tactic, to be fair.
And that was more of a defensive move than an offensive move.
Yes, definitely so. Definitely so. But overall, solid episode. There was some closeness. There was a bit of dominance here and there. But overall, it was very solid. And like you said, all 4 robots had something to offer. And all could have done really well in the fight to the finish, potentially.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
whilst it's not my favourite robot, yes, I do believe that the best robot of the episode did win. So I can't fault it there. And that brings us nicely to the plugging stage. Jimmy, plug your channel.
So I have my own YouTube channel. It is... it's just called Jimmy Cottam because that's my name. But on there is Robotic Idiotic, where I go through building robots, little robot projects relating to things like Robot Wars. I'm currently Well, I say currently, I've kind of stopped at the moment, but I am building a beta weight, a updated version of Volta. There's a few other projects on there. Some of them aren't even robots related projects, so I don't know, go check that out. You might find something that you like. You might not, but subscribe anyway.
Yeah, and my YouTube channel is Anderson9132 because that's my full name.
It is. That's on your birth certificate.
That is on my birth certificate, yes. Definitely so. But yes, no, yes. My channel is Anderson9132. I do two main series. One is the Robot Wars Guru, where I take a look at Robot Wars related topics. The most recent one of those was on Halloween actually, where I did my top 10 favourite spooky robots. So if you haven't seen that, go check it out. And the other series I do is Robot Wars Armageddon Rebirth, which is a reboot of my Family Robot Wars series. It is as sad as it sounds, and it's awesome at the same time. And I haven't really done much with that because I did quite a lot during the year with that, but I am planning my Christmas special for it, which will hopefully be out next month. Ooh. As long as I can get it all done. Huzzah, I know. So that brings us nicely to the end of this podcast. It was a good, solid episode. Join us next time where we will see a pyromaniac, a toothy grin, and the love child of a pram and a go-kart.
What?
Yes. Oh, what? Yes. we've got an exciting one next week, guys.
Is there a baby in there?
I wouldn't be shocked. It's the early 2000s, and Zappa is hosting, so maybe. Huge thank you to Jimmy once again for joining me for this. I really do appreciate it, mate.
That's all right. I am more than happy to talk and geek out about fighting robots.
Definitely so. So a big thank you to him. Big thank you to you guys for watching. I've been Anderson9132 to the Robot Wars Guru. We will see you next time for episode 4 of the Robotica-st. Thanks for watching. Take care.
Bye.